As I have introed a couple of times now because I just love finding different angles to talk about the 2024 playoffs, the 2024 playoffs are right around the corner, guys. And in today's video, I want to go over the X factor for every team. And that's it, I guess. I started saying a sentence and didn't have anywhere to go with it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Awesome Rusty Bucket. Subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and drop a like on this video. It only takes 1 second, and it makes a massive difference how the video performs in the YouTube algorithm. So just to be clear before I go down this list, what an X factor means to me is essentially a swing player in a series. A guy who theoretically can be the difference maker in how the playoffs go for these teams. Guys who are generally more inconsistent, have a higher ceiling than they often reach, so they could have a hot series when they'd normally just be fine, things of that nature. Or there's a factor about their game that can be exploited, and whether or not that gets exploited will affect their team, and so on. Without further ado, we're going to start with the Eastern Conference. For the Boston Celtics, my X factor is Jaylen Brown. This one seems quite easy to me because just out of the starting lineup for the Boston Celtics, him and Jrue Holiday are really the only guys who could be labeled as like fairly inconsistent playoff performers. Jrue Holiday, I am not labeling as the X factor purely because I think Jaylen matters more to the success of the Boston Celtics. Even though I think that Jaylen is a little overrated in terms of how much he matters to Boston, I definitely think he matters more than Jrue Holiday does. He had that rough series at times against Miami. In general, not always the most consistent in the postseason. His three ball the last couple of years has not been as strong as his volume would suggest it is. So that's something that he's the guy to keep an eye on. And if you have a strong Jaylen Brown series and everything else falls in line, I feel like other than Denver, no team even has a shot. But if you get like a bad Jaylen Brown performance in a series, that could be the weak link that allows a lesser team to actually surpass Boston. For the Milwaukee Bucks, I'm going to go with Brook Lopez. Brook's three ball has been pretty inconsistent the last couple of years. It has been pretty consistently exploited at times in the postseason. If you look at his three-point percentage in the postseason, it's not very good, and it is something that defenses can strategize against. Just leave Brook Lopez open, bring your defender, who is going to be a big man, over to the paint to defend Giannis. Whether or not Brook can hit those threes is really going to make a difference in how Giannis is defended in a series, and how Giannis is defended in the series is going to affect how everyone's defended in the series. So a lot of that hinges on Brook on offense, and then defensively, while he has been better of late, I don't think he has also been near the Defensive Player of the Year candidate that he was last year, I believe. So that is something to look at as well. Is his defense going to keep him on the floor? Because if we look at their 2021 championship run, Brook was more and more getting less minutes as the playoffs went along. I think he averaged around 20 minutes a game in the 2021 finals. Brook Lopez can potentially be a weak link. It really depends if that three ball drops or not. For the Cleveland Cavaliers, I'm going to go with Darius Garland, and this one's fairly self-explanatory. First of all, Darius was not all that strong in the Knicks series last year, and this year he has been real inconsistent. He has been getting better as the year has gone along, which is huge. He's been pretty damn good lately. So if he can carry that momentum into the postseason, it will help Cleveland mightily, because Lord knows they're going to need that creation with the spacing issues that they have with their bigs, which is something else that I thought about highlighting as an X factor, because there are a couple of players on the Cavs you could label that. Evan Mobley is another one who wouldn't be a bad pick. Isaac Okoro is a good pick. But yeah, I think I got to land with Darius because he's so pivotal to them, and he's been pretty bad this year relative to what we expect from him. For the New York Knicks, we got Julius Randle. Do I need to explain this? Julius has been bad in the postseason pretty much his entire career. He was better last year than he was a couple of years ago, but still not good. That is to be sure. If he does have a good series, it does make a world of difference from New York. It makes a world of difference for Jalen Brunson, not having to carry that much of the offensive load. Yeah, Julius is a huge X factor in the postseason in general. For the Orlando Magic, I'm going to go Wendell Carter Jr. After Wendell got hurt, they had, what's his name? Goga Badatse, I think. He started playing center for Orlando, and they looked relatively good in that context. And Wendell's supposed to be a future building block for this team, so getting a little bit more proactive and just more aggressive of a Wendell Carter Jr., a more engaged defensive one, hitting his threes as well, I think that can definitely help Orlando quite a bit, more so than really any other factor. I think there's a lot of swing factors with Orlando just because they're a young team in the postseason for the first time, and a lot of their guys have zero playoff success. But I'm honestly a lot more confident in a lot of other players on this team, like Paulo, Franz, and Jalen Suggs. Wendell is going to be interesting, and I think if he plays good on both ends, that can really matter for them. For the Indiana Pacers, I couldn't decide between Miles Turner or Jarris Walker. Miles, I thought, just because his defense has slipped recently. Part of that is the defensive scheme that the Pacers run that doesn't really play to his strengths. They've been improving defensively incrementally as the year has gone along. So if he can put up a strong defensive series and just have him be that anchor type guy, that makes a big difference. And just for defense in general, I also thought Jarris Walker. Jarris has been cracking the rotation more and more with the Pacers, and really he probably, if he shouldn't be starting, he should be one of the first guys off of the bench. And hopefully he does have that prominent of a place in the rotation when the postseason is here, because I do think he can make a real difference on that end while also being a positive offensive player. For the Miami Heat, I am going with Terry Rozier. Terry has been weird since he has gone to Miami because his shooting numbers are bad, but I also don't feel like he's been as bad as the numbers suggest, and his role in the offense works really well. He's also a microwave player who is known for just going on absolute heaters. He even had that stretch earlier on in his career with Boston, I think in 2018, where he had that series against Cleveland. Something like that will just win Miami a series, straight up. It doesn't have to go as far as that. If he can just simply hit his shots consistently, continue to play good defense, continue to make good plays, he'll end up being a huge upgrade for them over Kyle Lowry. For the Philadelphia 76ers, I am going with Joel Embiid. Simple enough. Joel has been bad in the playoffs for a lot of different times in his career, a lot of times recently. So if he's bad, everything else doesn't fucking matter. It's hard to, usually a superstar player is not going to get labeled as an X factor, but he has the playoff reputation that he does for a reason. I personally think he can break it. I don't know why. I have a strong feeling that will happen this year. If he's not too hobbled going in, it can't be anybody else. Like, yeah, Tobias Harris is more inconsistent than Joel Embiid, but if Tobias Harris is bad, that's just because he's Tobias Harris. For the Chicago Bulls, by the way, I'll tell you this now. Every team in the play-in and above I'm counting as a playoff team. Obviously, not all of them will make it, but, if they do or not, these guys will be the biggest factor. For the Bulls, Nikola Vucevic has got to have some of the most open three-point opportunities in the entire league out of any player. And he still shoots 30% on them, which is pretty fucking bad. But in games where he hits his threes, the Bulls almost always win. It really makes a huge difference. So if the three ball could go in, Vucevic can really swing a play-in game and potentially help them win a game or two against a top-seeded team. Realistically, that's not going to happen, even if Vucevic pops off. For the Atlanta Hawks, I'm going to go Onyeka Okongwu. Fucking start him already. Like, come on, do it. That's it. Like, Onyeka would make a big difference in a play-in game against the top seed, especially if they played Milwaukee, because he had that great series against them defensively against Giannis. Play Onyeka Okongwu, please. For the Denver Nuggets, I'm going to go Peyton Watson. I love Peyton Watson, and I personally think he is going to be what Bruce Brown was for the Nuggets last year. Not to the same extent. I don't think he'll be as good, but in terms of the role, in terms of being that first guy off of the bench who has versatility and fits in on both ends of the floor, he started hitting his threes as the season went along. Started off slow, but he's been like around 40%. Not on high volume or anything, but he's going to knock him down if you leave him wide open. Very good cutter, very good athlete. And then on the defensive end, crazy good shot blocker for I think he's a 6'8" wing, which isn't small, but he blocks shots like crazy. Good defender as a whole, really good energy plays. He does role player shit super well. And if his three ball goes in the postseason, if he is truly playable 30 minutes a game in the postseason, goddamn does that make life so much easier for Denver. And Lord knows they don't need it to be any easier. For the OKC Thunder, I have a three-way tie. Because with OKC specifically, if they want to go far in this postseason, Josh Giddey is, if not getting cut from the rotation, he is sure as shit not playing starters minutes. So someone is going to have to sub in there, and I have a three-way tie for who that might be, with Aaron Wiggins, Cason Wallace, and Isaiah Joe. And I think these guys all present interesting opportunities, and OKC should overall be happy that they have this amount of options, which in a way almost takes away the X factor element of this, because if one of them is playing bad, you can just sub the other one in. But Cason Wallace is a really strong defender who does not miss corner threes. Isaiah Joe is one of the best three-point shooters in the entire NBA. And Aaron Wiggins is almost like a meld in between the two, where he's a strong three-point shooter percentage-wise. In fact, I think his three-point percentage is actually pretty ridiculous. Low volume, though. Very good athlete. Bigger than Cason Wallace. Cason Wallace is like 6'1", so even though he's a strong defender, there's inherently going to be some weaknesses that come with that. For me, it's either Aaron Wiggins or Isaiah Joe. I do think the idea of offensively, given that they're based around the drive and kick, if you're drive and kicking it to one of the best three-point shooters in the NBA, that spells good things for your offense. If you want to go lean more defense and get a little bit more size, because size is, of course, a factor that is going against OKC, Aaron Wiggins can be that guy. It's going to be one of those three, and I think one of those three, we're going to be talking about them as a more pivotal part of this team's future whenever this postseason wraps up, where I don't know if a lot of people are expecting Aaron Wiggins to be a huge name, but he might be. For the Minnesota Timberwolves, I'm going to go with Jaden McDaniels, just simply for the offensive side of the ball. I was hoping to see more of an offensive leap from him this year, or at the very least for him to maintain his good efficiency from three, from just how he fits in within that offense. He displayed some good shot creation, good mid-range ability even, but he hasn't really done that this year as much as I thought he could, and his three-ball percentage has dipped as the year, not even just as the year has gone along. It's kind of been bad this entire year, and it was good last year. So if J-Mac, I know we're not supposed to call him J-Mac, but I also do, because J-Mac is also the nickname of their backup point guard, but so many people I know call him J-Mac. If he hits his threes, that's a big deal. With the New Orleans Pelicans, I'm going with Herb Jones, and it's pretty much for the same exact reason. If he hits his threes, it's a huge deal. Now, I understand Herb is shooting 5% from three this year, which is obviously absurdly good, but it is on a very low volume. He's really only taking wide open catch and shoots, and with his reputation as a poor shooter throughout his career to the 2 years before this, I can definitely tell you that Herb Jones will not be getting, face guarded in this series. He's going to get some open jumpers. Teams are going to strategically leave him open, even if he did shoot super well in the regular season. He's got to hit those shots. I mean, a lot of this is factoring into that, because teams are going to strategically leave somebody open. And if you're a wishy-washy shooter, if you're a little inconsistent as a shooter, that's going to be a huge factor in any series if you can hit the open shots that you're given. For the LA Clippers, I got to go with Zubats, my twin. I'm right back in, baby. He's their best center. I don't think it's by a wide margin, because Mason Plumlee is a pretty damn solid backup, but he's definitely a good center, their best center. Got played off the floor against the Mavericks in the past. Theoretically could have that same thing happen against different matchups. So his ability to stay on the floor and his ability to defend good big men. If the Clippers, who have been slipping lately, want to be a threat to the Nuggets, they need someone who can, at the very least, make Jokic not just cook without impunity. There needs to be a little resistance. And if he can provide even a little resistance, then that is huge. For the Sacramento Kings, I gotta go with Kevin Huerter. For the Dallas Mavericks, gonna go Josh Green. Josh Green's been a lot better lately, and he was a little disappointing for me to start the year just because I thought he could do a little bit more than he was, but he's slowly maturing into just this god-tier 3-and-D player. He also has a little bit of creation ability. He'll surprise you with that every once in a while, and I remember him doing that in the postseason last year. Something like that again, just being a really strong role player. If honestly, I was kind of torn between him and Tim Hardaway Jr., because Tim is a terrible defender and probably easily the worst defender in their rotation, probably one of the worst high rotation defenders in the entire NBA. He can be a microwave guy, an inconsistent guy. He's been a very solid shooter this year, a very good shooter this year. But yeah, Josh Green or Tim Hardaway Jr., they need somebody to be like a third guy on offense to some capacity, someone who will just reliably hit their shots. Huh? Wait, what? He's not going to play in the postseason? Damn. Okay, Rudy just informed me that Kevin Huerter is not going to be available for the postseason for the Sacramento Kings. I haven't watched them in a while, so I didn't know he was hurt. Who the fuck do I pick then? I guess Sabonis. Sabonis was in the playoffs. He kind of got bitched by Kevon Looney and Draymond Green, so maybe don't let that happen. For the Phoenix Suns, I'm going to go with Jusuf Nurkic. Nurkic is their starting center, and he's one of 3 players that are not their big 3 that don't suck. Him being a swing factor, I've seen him be huge in a lot of different Suns games. If he has a big series, if he theoretically hits the open catch and shoot threes and mid-range jumpers that he gets, they're not that high volume, but when he gets them, it'd be nice to hit them. Good passing and all that, and then being a solid defender and rebounder. If he can be fairly consistent in those areas, that would definitely make life easier for Phoenix, because Lord knows in the aspects of the game outside of scoring, they're pretty much playing at a massive deficit against any other playoff team. For the Los Angeles Lakers, I am going to go with D'Angelo Russell. It's a similar factor to last year. Bad was bad. Don't be bad. Bad would be bad. Hot take. And I'm also going to talk about the Houston Rockets, even though they're just outside of the play-in, just simply because they are like right neck and neck with the Warriors. For the Warriors, I'm going to go with Chris Paul / Andrew Wiggins. Chris is old as hell. Wiggins fell off this year. One of them seeming less old as hell or less washed would be huge. And then finally for the Houston Rockets, I'm going to go with Jalen Green. If he even somewhat maintained the heater that he has been on going into the play-in, going into the postseason, I think Houston could fuck with teams a little bit more than they really have any right to. Jalen has a history, as we talked about in the recent video, or Nick did rather, of going off in the month of March. Hopefully this is something that can maintain itself, because it really just makes such a huge difference for Houston, not only in this postseason, but their future at large. With that said, that was every X factor in the NBA. Shout out to Nick for editing this video, and that is it. Goodbye.